Yesterday I was looking through the different Bibles that I've got, and I found my mother's Bible that someone gave her 47 years ago, her best friend did. And I noticed that all through here is all kinds of notes, and so that's going to make preaching easy today, because my mother took great notes, and I learned an awful lot of my theology and Bible training from her. She was very smart. And I'm going to preach, or try to, on her favorite chapter of the entire Bible. She read it an awful lot. And it goes with what's going on in the world today. We see people getting more and more wicked and evil and doing some of the most awful things that the human brain can concoct. And we look around and we wonder, when will this end? And a lot of times we are tempted to think that, well, there's no hope in sight, there's no end in sight to this. But please understand, God sees all of this. And He is still sitting on His throne, and He is able. And He is also able to look out for His own, regardless of what the rest of the world is doing. And I think about some of the times when I would talk with my mother and tell her, do you see this going on and that's going on? And I said, this is unbelievable. She said, oh, no, just read Psalm 37, read Psalm 37. She'd say that all the time. And so today I'm going to read Psalms 37. David starts off by saying, fret not yourself because of evildoers. And that's hard to do right now, isn't it? That's really hard not to be fretted, to be thoroughly aggravated. Fret not yourself because of evildoers. Neither be envious against the workers of iniquity, because it looks like they got it made. It looks like they can do anything they want, and there's no repercussions, that nobody's doing anything about it, and it really looks that way on the surface right now. It does. And if you look at it strictly through human eyes, that's exactly what you will see. But it says, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass, and wither as the green herb. And that's ultimately the end of these people. Always remember the phrase, you can't do wrong and get by. Eventually, God is very patient. I will be the first to admit I am not patient. I lost all of my patience shortly after Anna was born. And I don't hear a single person going, gee, I wonder why. But really, Donna had to teach kids how to drive. My patience is gone. But God's patient. Way more patient than we are. Do not mistake God's patience for weakness or for ignoring what's going on in the world. He's not. He's got a plan. He knows exactly what everybody's doing. He knows what's going on in the world. None of it bothers Him. He sees it. And He knows what's going to happen. And David said, for they shall be soon cut down like the grass, and wither as the green herb. Then he gives us this right here, and this is something we all really need to hang on to, and hang on to tightly. Trust in the Lord. Don't trust in man. Man will always let you down, no matter how great you may think they are or whatever. Trust in the Lord and do good. Do what you're supposed to do. Just because we are living in tough times or evil times does not give us permission to stop doing the things that God has called us to do, and to also do good. We're to continue on with what we are doing. And He said, so shall you dwell in the land, and verily you shall be fed. Now, I want you to remember in the days of Pharaoh, and Nikki likes to talk about this too, and the Lord had even laid this on his heart a number of times, the word Goshen. while Egypt was going through all of the stuff that was going on, all of the plagues, all of the horrors, God's people who were dwelling nearby in the land of Goshen were safe. God fed them, they never did without, and they were protected. And do not think for one second that God cannot do that with his church, that God cannot do that with his people, because he certainly can, and we've seen evidence of it. We have seen God protect this church when the government was having their heyday starting around the end of 2019 and all of that. And we've watched how God looked over the people here just in this local assembly. And he's watched over others that have followed him and obeyed him. And so don't worry. He said you'll be fed and you will dwell in the land. And he tells us why not only should we trust in the Lord, but he said delight yourself also in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. That has a twofold meaning. If you delight yourself in the Lord, not only will he give you the things that you ask for, but he will change the things that you ask for. Yeah. He will not only give you what you ask, but he will change the desires that are in your heart. Think about that for a moment. The things that you may desire with a worldly attitude are not what God would put in your heart to desire. And he will not only change your desires, he will also meet them if you delight yourself in the Lord. And another thing he tells us to do, not only should we trust, not only should we delight, but he says commit. Now that's where a lot of Christians draw the line. They simply are not willing to commit. They don't trust God enough to commit everything into his hands. And if you're going to be successful as a Christian, if you're going to have victory, you've got to commit 100%. Nick always teaches that if you're 99% in, you're out. Either you're 100% in or you're 100% out. There are no, oh, I'm going to give him this and I'm going to give him this, but I'm not going to trust him with that. I'm not going to trust him with that. You will never have victory in your life. You will just be loafing along at whatever, and you'll never have victory. You've got to commit your ways to him 100%, because he is the one that can make things happen. Amen. How many of you have seen so many incredible things happening around you all the time that the Lord has done? That should be sufficient proof that we can commit. But he says right here, commit your way unto the Lord, trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. God has something for everyone in here to do, and it's always something really good, something great. But it's never going to happen until you stop keeping your eyes on the world and you commit your way to him. You commit it completely to him and go be like Job. Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. Be that committed. And that's commitment right there. What did they used to say, that eggs and bacon in the morning, that the chicken was partially committed but the hog was totally committed? You got to be the hog, folks. I know that's not real spiritual. I'm sorry, but that's the best I can give you right now. You got to be totally committed to make it happen. You got to be totally committed to the Lord, and you got to trust in him, and he will bring the things that he wants you to do to pass. He will make it happen for you. He will open doors for you, and so forth and so on. But he can't do it if you're not committed. You're just going to float along until you commit your way to the Lord and let him bring it to pass. He's still on the throne. He's still all powerful. He's still all knowing. What else do we need to know about God to commit our ways to him? Amen. He shall bring forth your righteousness as the light, and your judgment as the noonday. Don't worry about defending yourself all the time, because if you do, the devil will keep you tied up doing that for the rest of your life. Let God bring that out. Let God show what is right and what is not. Let him do the revealing. And then he tells us this, because a lot of times we feel so weary. Rest in the Lord. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. That is preaching to me. I'm preaching to myself right now because I'm not a very patient person at all. I suffer from a mental illness called the Aunt Esther syndrome, where somebody said something to her one time and she drew back her pocketbook and hollered, "The Lord shall smite thee, but I can't wait." And she went right after them. I'm guilty of that, and I need to work on that, because when I try to put my hands on it and deal with it, it flops every time, and I'm learning that. And so I wait patiently for the Lord and let him do his work. That's how the church is supposed to function as well. We wait patiently on the Lord and what he wants to be done. Fret not yourself of him who prospers in his way. You'll sometimes go, "Lord, look at the struggle that I'm going through, or so-and-so's going through, and look at that sorry thing down the road there." I'm not going to point at, I'm going to, because I don't want y'all to think I think one of y'all is that sorry thing down the road. And they say, "Look at him, he lives like the devil, and he's making money hand over fist. He's never sick, he's got this, he's got that." Bible says don't fret over that. Don't fret over that, because of the man who prospers in his way, or the man that brings wicked devices to pass. We are seeing today before our eyes people bringing wicked devices to pass every day. What do you mean by that, Dave? Every law that's passed in this land is a wicked device, just about. It is. We are living literally in Egypt. We're living in the Roman Empire. We're living in an evil land. And it is very tempting to unravel when we see all of that sometimes. But God says wait on him. He knows what he's doing. Don't be envious, or don't look at that person that's bringing wicked devices to pass and go, "Well, they're getting away with it." No, they're not. He says this: cease from anger and forsake wrath, and fret not yourself in any wise to do evil. I was reading a thing this morning on people throughout the last few decades that had committed acts of vengeance against others, and they thought they'd gotten away with it, but they all got caught. And God says, what did God say? "Vengeance is mine, let me do the repaying." Because if you let God do that, you will be amazed at his repaying. He can come up with stuff that you can't do and make it even. And so don't fret yourself about that. And it says, because evildoers shall be cut off. Their day is coming. They will be cut off, but those that wait on the Lord shall inherit the earth. Now, what in the world is that talking about? I'm going to give you the prophetic plan. The Lord is planning to come and get his church any day now and take them off, his bride, literally, Jesus' bride, off of the earth, which is the church, and take them up to heaven for 7 years. During that 7 years is going to be a time of purging on this earth that has never been seen before. And he said in the book of Daniel, he was going to put an end to sin during that time. He was going to shut it down, and he's going to do all of these different things while the church is up there at a wedding feast. And after that is done and the wicked are put down, then we come back for 1,000 years, and literally the church inherits the earth. So we're not going to inherit the earth in the condition that it's in right now. He's got a clean house first. And once the house is clean, we're going to inherit the earth. Evildoers will be cut off, but those that wait on the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. It'll all be ours one day. For yet a little while, and the wicked shall not be. Yea, you shall diligently consider his place, and it shall not be. Growing up, I saw wicked people that lived in our neighborhood. All they did was think about doing hateful things. They were cruel to their neighbors. They were cruel to animals. They were cruel to each other. And that one of them made a statement that they would never come to church, that God was an old man that lived in the church and killed people. That was the blasphemy that came from these people. Right now, you cannot find a single member of that family anywhere on this earth. They were scattered. They disappeared. Most of them are gone. Where are they? They're not there anymore. Most are dead or whatever, or just disappeared. They're not there anymore. That voice was silenced a long time ago. There are a lot of people I've met that their mind was geared for nothing but evil. And God dealt with them. And they're not to be found anywhere. So don't worry about the wicked and the evildoers when they prosper, because they are going to just disappear. You can diligently consider their place, and it shall not be. Don't worry about wicked people and evildoers. One day they won't even hardly be in the history book. They're going to be gone. God is going to take care of them. The meek shall inherit the earth and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. And in contrast to the meek, the wicked plotteth against the just. We see that now. We see them plot against everything that's decent and good in this world right now. You see it every day. And they gnash upon him with his teeth. And look at what happens when these people confidently sit up there and they'll get on TV and they'll talk about the wicked things they're going to do and how proud they are. And there's some of them that are so low down that they consider the wickedness that they are doing, they call it God's work. You ever heard them do that? They think they're doing God's work. One man got on TV and said he wanted to have an operation where he could get pregnant just so he could abort a baby. Now, you can't get any sorrier and low down than that. If you can, I don't want to hear it. Y'all keep it to yourself if you think of something worse than that. That's how evil this world is getting. And they're bragging about their sin. But look at what the Bible says. The Lord shall laugh at him, for he sees that his day is coming. Folks, please understand, you can't do wrong and get by. Amen. Can't do it. God is keeping a record of everything. And even if you're doing something and you think, well, I'm just sliding right on by. No, you need to repent real quick, because you got to also understand God is patient. He wants everybody to be saved. He really does. Even more than we do. And because some of us, we just wish they'd just go on, or they disappear or just fall over or whatever. I mean, might as well be honest. When you see some of these wicked people, but God's given them time. But eventually that time runs out. And when it does, they're out of here. God's going to take them out. He's going to cut them off. And he said he laughs because he sees their day is coming, especially when they get up in God's face. And they laugh and mock at God and say he doesn't exist. And I've heard some of the most blasphemous things said, particularly on social media lately, about Jesus and about God. And don't think for a moment he doesn't hear that. He hears every bit of that. And he knows that their day is going to come. The wicked have drawn out the sword and have bent their bow to cast down the poor, to cast down the needy, and to slay such as be of an upright conversation. That's an old English term for somebody that behaves himself, that lives for the Lord, that does right, an upright conversation. Conversation literally means your behavior. Those that behave themselves in an upright manner. But here's what's going to happen to those that are plotting against God's people, against the bride of Christ. It said their sword shall enter into their own heart. It's going to turn on them, and their bows shall be broken. Eventually, it's going to come to an abrupt end when God has seen that that's enough. I know a lot of times we think it might be, but God is patient and God has his timing just right. But hang in there. God's going to look out for you. A little that a righteous man has is better than the riches of many wicked. For the arms of the wicked shall be broken, but the Lord upholds the righteous. I had a friend of mine that, what was that? That was loud, wasn't it? Beep. I don't know. I don't think there's a bomb up here or nothing, is it?
No.
Okay. I think about a friend of mine that was an evangelist for many years, Brother Bill Martin, him and Diane. And so many people tried to slander him, bring him down, hurt him for years. And they all disappeared. And he would call me on the phone, and we'd talk sometimes for hours, and he would go over some of the things that had happened, and he would end the conversation. He'd go, Dave, you know, we still here, aren't we? God hasn't done nothing to us. He's kept us safe and watched over us, and he's gotten rid of these people. And he will. He will. The Lord upholds the righteous. The Lord knows the days of the upright, and their inheritance shall be forever. They shall not be ashamed in the evil time. We're in the evil time, people. Hello. Wake up. We're in the evil time. This is not the time to be ashamed. God will allow you to proclaim the gospel and not be ashamed of doing it, even when everybody's laughing at you. Don't ever let that shame you. And in the days of famine, they shall be satisfied. May I submit to anyone that is sitting here, watching by TV, watching by YouTube, watching by Facebook, listening by radio, or whatever mode you got us on. If you're hungry, come on over here and let's take you downstairs, because you will never do without. If you need clothes, we can take you over to the Redemption Center and take care of that. If you need some medical devices, if you need this or you need that, you come to this church and I guarantee you they'll find a way to get it for you. Amen. God supplies us abundantly. Amen. And the only reason he does it is because we give it out. God will only give you what you give out. That's what he does. And it doesn't require that we have tons of money. We don't. Our most expensive thing is our electric bill, and that's plenty high enough. But God supplies us where we take care of more and more people every year. And it's amazing how much more he gives. We had a flood come down in the basement at the Redemption Center, took out boxes and boxes of stuff. Nobody expected the rain to do that. And we wondered, what are we going to do? And it wasn't but a few weeks later we had all of that replaced and more. And more than what we can almost handle. So don't worry about it. In the days of famine, they shall be satisfied. But the wicked shall perish, and the enemies of the Lord shall be as the fat of lambs. They shall consume into smoke, and they will consume away. They're not going to be around much longer, folks. They're not. The wicked borroweth and payeth not again, but the righteous showeth mercy and gives. For such as be blessed of him shall inherit the earth, and they that be cursed of him shall be cut off. And listen to this carefully. Listen to this carefully. This is for a message for those that are saved, that walk with the Lord. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way. If you are part of God's family, if you're saved and you're serving him, he will order your steps. There's a couple of old songs about order my steps. It's an old black gospel song, order my steps. And he will. You're not going to have to worry whether you're doing this or doing that. He will order your steps. He will direct what you do and watch out for you while you do it. And it said, though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down, for the Lord upholdeth him with his hand. And those that are let me just say this again, emphasize. How many of y'all have been to the grocery store lately? Well, the rest of you that haven't, don't. It's like going to a haunted house. It'll scare the devil out of you to go in there and look at the prices, but don't let that bother you. Even though the most sacred of all meats, bacon, is $7.99 a pound. Don't worry about that, because listen to what David said. I have been young, and now am old, yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. You will not do without, folks. Don't you ever worry about that. Don't let them scare you on the news and tell you that it ain't going to be this and ain't going to be that. I stockpiled enough toilet paper to take care of y'all for a year. How about that? Don't worry about it. God's going to take care of you. He's going to watch over you. It doesn't matter how it's done. It's going to happen. He will do it. I always like that one joke about that one poor old woman. She had nothing in her cabinets to eat, nothing in her fridge, nothing. And so she gets down on her knees by her fireplace and said, Lord, I'm so hungry. Would you please get me some food? And these two teenage boys were walking by the window and they heard her and they said, let's have a little fun with her. So they go down to the store and get a great big ham and tie it to a rope and let it down through her chimney. And she saw what they were doing. And so she takes and unties the ham and puts it in the oven to cook, and then she goes back over to the fireplace and gets on her knees and said, thank you, Lord, for sending me that food, even if you did it by the devil. And so don't you ever worry. If he has to do it by the devil, he'll get it for you. So don't worry about that at all. Nonetheless, it said, I've never seen them begging bread. He is ever merciful and lendeth, and his seed is blessed. Here's what we're to do. Depart from evil and do good and dwell forevermore. For the Lord loveth judgment and forsaketh not his saints, for they are preserved forever. But the seed of the wicked shall be cut off. They'll be cut off. And so I know that our timing is not God's timing. I know that from a human point of view. But he sees what we can't see. He knows what we don't know. And he is able. What our main concern is to do the very best we can, serve God, keep our eyes focused on souls. Have you ever thought that the devil is doing all he can to distract us from what the business is at hand? And that is spreading the gospel? Because if he can sidetrack us, he can keep us from sharing Jesus with other people. And we need not to ever do that. We need to continuously do his work, because he is not going to let nothing happen to you. It's like Billy Graham wrote a book on angels. And there was a man who was going around giving out Bibles in a city one time. And somebody was standing there watching him. And he asked the guy, this man walked up to the guy with the Bibles and said, do you have travel with bodyguards everywhere you go? And the man said, what are you talking about? And he said, I saw a man coming up the street with a knife in his hand, and he kept trying to get to you. And these great big men were surrounding you and keeping him away, and he couldn't get anywhere near you. And the guy said, what men? And what that man saw were the angels that were around that man. And so God will assign his angels to watch over you while you are doing his work. And nothing will touch you. Nobody's going to do anything unless the Lord lets it happen. And he does everything for a reason. So realize you've got the protection of heaven. You've got the protection of heaven's angels and the Lord himself. And so let the wicked holler, let the wicked come up with a new thing every day, but you remember who you are. You belong to the armies of the living God. Amen. You are a child of the King. This isn't our home anyway now, and it won't be until he cleans it up. And so in the meantime, let's act as ambassadors and spread the good news. And let God handle these people, because he's going to. He's going to deal with them. And one day you'll look around and they won't be anywhere to be seen. He's going to deal with it. But in the meantime, we need to be busy serving God as his ambassadors in that time. Shall we stand?